Greetings. Welcome to Wake the Dead. Today we are continuing with our with William Ramsey speaking about the Manchurian Candidate from fiction to fact. Today is part 6, and we are joined by our good friend Hans Utter of the Resonant State. Welcome, Hans.
Hi, Sean. Great to be here, and just want to shout out if anybody wants to give me a donation. I have my chair I got for $1.50. It's extremely uncomfortable, so I could really use a new chair.
Like
But
what?
it's great to be back here, and this has just been a sort of a very fascinating deep dive into these subjects. And Ed, I won't go into all the news, but still, mass shootings are continuing. The drums of war are beating, right? And so these shootings are pretty high volume, right? I mean, we're looking at there's a 2 gunmen, 14 people shot in, I believe it was Alabama. I think it was yesterday, right? So there's lots of stuff going on with that. And as we continue, right, this is just fascinating, unfortunately fascinating topic. But and I read that book, the McGowan book, and it's just like just to see the enormity of this, and in the same process of let's the legal process, people just not being prosecuted, people being railroaded, right? And so we have the same kind of deployment, the corruption of the judicial system, and this whole operation, which and then this connection with these satanic networks, appears to be, and so it's quite a deep topic. So, but William Ramsey, one of the best in the business, and so it's just always a tremendous pleasure to be joined by Mr. William Ramsey, author of many books and one of the most prolific podcasters this side of Mars, man.
The
So
rainbow? I don't know.
this side of the rainbow.
Really? Oh, smokes. Yeah, I found out I got some new stats. I'm in the top 18,000 podcasts in the world. So it's going out there. I've got a lot of audience and a lot of great responses from this series that we're doing right now. I think a lot of people may not have seen these things from the angle. And just like you said, there's so many of them going back really to the Manchurian Candidate. Like I've said before, it's almost like that is a watermark or some kind of watermark where everything happened after that. But I am now streaming to my YouTube channel, so welcome to anybody on my YouTube channel. I seem to have got it back, so we'll see how that goes. But also, like, the intros to these episodes are just as interesting before we go live as live. Like, we're talking about so many other things, but we really should just start, if I could be on time, if we should really just start at 8 and just hit the live button and go. And then figure things out, because the audience kind of misses out kind of on some of these riffs and anyway, I'm glad to be back. And yeah, it's amazing that we started this before the Charlie Kirk assassination and like all these other things that are happening. So I think this is a really timely subject, and there's a lot way to go. We're trying to get to Esther Brooks, and I think this background's really important, the Mind Control 101 Program to Kill, and also going through Condon stuff. So for people who are just coming across this one at 6, please go back and check out the earlier 5 episodes. Go to the Resonant State or Wake the Dead and have a listen there. They have other content there too, guys. So you can kind of see their take on things. Sean's done a lot of investigation into mind control and mind control victims and Eyes Wide Shut. So you can check all that stuff out. So anyway, glad to be back.
And William,
Thank you, William.
Just to bring something up that from the McGowan book that I thought it may or may not be relevant, but the earlier Gilles de Rais, right? The French nobleman in the 1400s who kidnapped anywhere from 200 to 1,000 children, sexually abused them, tormented them, very much, Satanist, etc. And then also, of course, the Marquis de Sade, who did the same thing, right? And so the 100 Days of Sodom, that really is a book, but it's also a very unpleasant movie. But the director, he basically mysteriously died right after making that movie. But, the extent that this has been continuing for, potentially centuries, right? I think that's just throw that out there because
Since forever, dude.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's relevant, but Gilles de Rais, like, so he was, considered to be, if not the richest man in Europe, very close to it, right? He fought side by side with Joan d'Arc. And so McGowan hints that Joan d'Arc may have been a little wacky. She heard voices, and potentially the children were disappearing when they were together. So Joan of Arc may have been part of that. But anyways, Gilles de Rais, like, he literally went from being, this military hero, again, incredibly wealthy, multiple estates, to just going as far into evil as he could. Right. And so it's a really disturbing story. But and again, he was at the pinnacle of the elite society, and he just got away with this for decades until he kidnapped a priest, and finally the church, stepped in. But it just shows that, I mean, Gilles de Rais' stuff is just, you look at the serial killers, he was doing exact same things. Labas, yes, Labas. I saw that. That's a book, and Labas is a great book. And that talks about satanic networks at the turn of the 19th century, right? And the author was involved in those networks, and then he moved out of it. So it's, quite interesting. So,
I just want to bring up that it's probably all the same thing, because we all have the same human brains throughout history, and these problems are arising because of the same mental processes. The SRA, the intergenerational abusers abuse children to rewire their heads. And you were saying in the other episode, like, what wires together, fires together, Hans. We were talking about that, and with the trauma and abuse that the sadism does to the children, changes their brains forever, and then they grow up to, I don't know if it's just that, or if it's the gradual letting go of your conscience that we talked about on my show. I talked about with John Euler, about how, like, it's a stepwise negating of your own conscience, and then eventually you get to this point where domination is the goal instead of sexual desires, and it turns into inflicting pain on others creates pleasure in you. And it's like the opposite rewiring of, like, when you're in love with your wife, and you see her happy, that makes you happy. It's like the opposite. It's like when you see others in pain and torture, it makes you happy. And that's where, and they gave it the name because of Marquis de Sade, right? And he was famous, but he, as a kid, he had like his mother and aunt, and they were like hookers or something, and he lived with them, and there was all kinds of weird abuse going on. And then he grew up to be different, and then they put him on the top of the pedestal, like, he's the guy, yeah, like, he's the model of the psychopathy, and so they named the whole phenomenon after him. But still, it's the same problem that of creating psychopath through abuse. Like, the SRA has the abuse, and then they give a little bit of love and bonding, and that bonding creates the Stockholm syndrome type shit, so that then they will follow orders because, oh yeah, they really love me even though they whip me, But if they don't have the bonding, it just creates psychopathy. It breaks the brain. No one loves me. Love is not real. Like, and then this other stuff comes out. Like, it's like a monster animal, right? I believe that is just a phenomenon of the brain. Like, what this abuse does. And this is what G.H. Estabrooks was studying, what they were discovering with scientific experiment. But it is the same that's been going on since that guy and since the other people, and so that's
Gilles de Rais or Gilles de Retz, Marshal of France, massive amounts of money, like an elite, right? So he's an elite. He's like landed estate aristocrat, and it like ties into like the True Detective, where there's he's connected. Gilles de Rais gets like all the blame. He had all kinds of people involved. He had magicians and people from Italy who all snuck away, but he took the blame. He was literally turned into the lone nut in a lot of ways, and it's very well recorded. There's 2 different legal inquiries and systemic analysis of what he was doing. There was a judicial one from France and also an ecclesiastical one, because it was much more Christian back then. So he didn't like getting excommunicated, which is really strange considering he abducted and raped 500 kids. And if you go back, I was rewatching True Detective again, and it's the same kind of story. Like, there's this mysterious background of disappearing kids. And that's what was happening in France. All these peasants, their kids would disappear, and they would be snatched by people part of his crew. He wasn't going out and snatching them himself. So it's a far darker story. And there's all kinds of black magic and
like the Finders.
Well, he was summoning demons, right? So that's a lot of these rituals, and he just kept escalating the violence and the torture. You don't need to describe it, but I just want to make a distinction, Sean. You mentioned people that are abused, right? So Gilles de Rais was not abused, man. And they're also the people they get. It's like sort of chasing the dragon, right? It's like Richard Pryor or something, smoking crack and freebasing. You just need another hit. You need another hit, and people literally, I mean, they gravitate to this evil and they just can't get enough. It keeps going. So I think that should be, I don't know what degree it's an extent, but someone to say that's abused, they can be turned into something, but that stage of where you're just, you know what I mean? Like some of those serial killers.
Right.
Maybe you can keep going.
Maybe you can get there on your own by making these immoral decisions again and again. And then that in itself is rewiring your brain too, because you're having these experiences of like pleasure while you're abusing. And then that, like there's different ways to rewire is all I'm saying. Like it doesn't only happen one way. And I agree with you. I think that's true also. Okay.
Power though too, right? He was doing rituals initially. He got into magic, got into alchemy, sorcery, and then just kept escalating. And so a lot of that, the initial murders, some of them were just based on ritual stuff, right? You need a skull bone, but then it just kept. Once that started, it just kept going. It snowballed.
Right.
He would incinerate the bodies and ashes and stuff like that. But he was also kind of he would have these huge kind of parties or festivals. Like, it's really weird. The backdrop of it is almost like he would prodigiously or profligately spend money on these huge things. And that's why he kind of went broke and had to sell stuff, is because the backdrop of these rituals was like ostentatious displays of wealth and power is really something else. And like for back then, the Marshal of France was the top military guy. There wasn't like, Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was the head military leader of France. Some of these depictions are something else. Like,
wow, like laboratory.
I've actually read. You can go to William Ramsey Reed's history books and see all the stuff that I've read, because I've read the ecclesiastical treatise about this case, and so you can just listen to it if you're interested. So this is another story, but Bataille wrote a book about Gilles de Rais, but this is like transgressive literature kind of guy, but he was a little sympathetic in a very uncomfortable way.
Didn't he write the story of O? It's about, it was about, this woman who gets into this sort of S&M and ends up just being this totally debased sex slave. He also wrote The Accursed Share, which I thought, I used to think Bataille was pretty cool. I was like, oh, The Accursed Share, that's a great concept. Then you realize this guy was actually a very twisted pornographer, following on the heels of Marquis de Sade, actually.
Yeah, Bataille's he's really demented. He's very sick. It's a sick puppy. His occult secret society stuff is really something else. It's another show, but he was keyed into the darkest stuff, man. Like really hardcore.
So the pornography and the snuff films add to, like, that's what is infecting the other brains. Like there's a killer, I forget his name, but he was in the interview. He was talking about how he lived in this apartment complex, and there's this young girl, maybe 11, and she came into his house and she was playing with his rat, and he was like, well, I guess, okay. And then he like kills her and rapes her and then like eats her. And he's talking about he's just being honest with the cops, and they're like, where did you start? And he's like, well, I was on these internet sites, and people were sharing pictures they made of women roasting on a spit, and it got him sexually aroused. And then he gets, more into it, like, where did that start? Pornography, just normal pornography. And it's just progressed. And so like, he's a normal guy, wasn't abused, and he pushed himself into that. Like, I don't know where the desire inside maybe pushed him there. Like, he was broken soul to begin with, but the pornography that they create from these like occult groups that are like, they make money off of it, obviously they sell this porn, but that is infecting the minds. It's spreading the evil, kind of like the Order 9 Angles with their writings. It's out there on the internet, just hitting brains and changing them. So that pornography is part of the process. And if like, it's also the money that they make from it is part of it. But I mean, if they didn't make that pornography, there would not be more being infected, gravitating towards this. It's like creating a more satanic world altogether. But the pornography is important with the changing of the minds of how this starts in their heads.
This is a picture of Jeanne d'Arc and Gilles de Rais at the coronation of Charles VII of France at Reims Cathedral, like the main cathedral in Reims. Excerpt from an etching by Fernand Hertenberger, published in the 1926 edition of Joris Karl Huysman's novel, Le Boss. So there you go, dystopian deep dives. You have an old fan here, Han. Somebody, Patricia says, wow, Hans Uter, my fave guest on Unspun. So that's got a history.
That's going back. Check out my new
podcast.
Yeah.
Where can people find those old Unspun?
They can't.
I will have to find them myself and post them. So I should call Jan. I have to reach out to him.
Dystopian, yes. True Detective is partially based on Hosanna Church, which is super dark. I've done an episode on that too. But he was the guy that wrote True Detective, had an Italian last name. He's from Louisiana, so he's familiar with that kind of area and territory. And that's super dark. If you want to have a really bad week, listen to the Hosanna Church, because they were doing the darkest dark stuff imaginable, like on par with Gilles de Rais. So,
could you tell me about that, William? I'm not familiar with that case.
Hosanna Church was a church. There was a pastor, and he was actually like supposedly a legit Christian pastor at a church. Hosanna, it was in Ponchatoula or whatever that name is in Louisiana. So it was outside of New Orleans. And then his son took over the church and just took the darkest dive imaginable. And it was involving a group of people, and they were pedophiles. They were trafficking children. They were doing black magic rituals. There's testimony that these people's faces changed. So like some of these SRA people say they turn into lizard people, or their faces morph. Like there's that kind of testimony, take it or leave it. But like, and it's all recorded. So these guys all went to jail. I'll see if I can find it. But yeah, the Hosanna Church is like, whoa, super dark, man. And they had all the evidence. Like this guy confessed. And he was with his kids too. So he was abusing his kids. Like this is the same kind of story. He had 2 boys. So he was abusing them too. Like it's all these same tropes, these same things of like
intergenerational, right? Yep. Trauma-based mind control, sexual-based, humiliation, I'm sure as well.
And then it's like covered up. Like nobody, even in the alternate media, almost nobody ever talks about it. Like you just can't. His name was Louis LaMonica. And let's see if I can find my bird.
One of the patterns, of course, again, you have these networks like from the McGowan book, the Atlanta child murders. I had no idea the extent of that, right? I mean, I think it was 50, 60 kids. And there was a satanic pedophile cult They found ritual sites. They had one of the a woman who was a boyfriend of one of the leaders of the cult talked about the drug smuggling ring from Florida to Atlanta, and all this stuff was there, and it just never investigated. And the people involved, right? It's always that one guy. Oh, we got the guy, right? And the guy, and with the Atlanta child murders, the guy didn't even do the murders. Now he most likely was a photographer, right? He was part of the cult, but at least according to witnesses, he didn't participate. And it doesn't matter what the facts are. We'll just make the facts up. We're just going to railroad and cover this up. And the alacrity with which the police work to hide the information is really stunning, actually, in many cases.
They're all part of the cult. They're all.
This was
in
a
the
cult.
group.
This was an active cult moving around, trafficking people in a church, and they blacked everything out. Nick Pizzolatto was the writer of True Detective, of all the True Detective things, and he actually is featured in the original True Detective, which is really interesting. But this is Ponchatoula, Louisiana, was the site of the church.
So this stuff happening in churches is another common theme. All right, like there will be like many churches are actually a black church doing black stuff on, and these churches are built on sacred grounds and all this stuff, ancient stuff, and a lot of the Roman Catholic mass, all of that is like they just do the opposite. If you look at Eyes Wide Shut, he's got the thurible, they got the robes. It's just like Catholic mass. Even the OTO is like their mass is like basically from the Roman Catholic, right? And so anyway, it's not just Roman Catholic, the Mormon churches, and there's many all the other like Protestant and evangelical.
Bro, I did a show on Rex Huerman, the serial killer.
Oh, that guy.
The Lisk serial killer's uncle was involved in SRA at a Protestant church.
Exactly.
And they paid it out. There was a network. There were 7 pastors who were all civilly sued, and the churches, just like what they did to the Catholic Church, they just paid people off.
Right.
Here's the episode. It's actually timely because this bring up Hosanna Church, because I did it last year for Halloween. So if you guys want to have a Halloween experience, and I titled it Halloween Nightmare Special, the Hosanna Church Scandal, not safe for work, not safe to listen anywhere.
Don't listen. Here, go ahead. Oh, that's great.
I'm going to be hanging out with Erica Kirk, picking up some Hungarian sex slaves, on Halloween. I'm just kidding. There you go. But
anyway,
I've been deep diving into Hungary and Austria and those bloodline families and stuff. Oh my God.
Dark. Thanks, V. I was on Tinfoil Hat talking about Manchurian Candidate, kind of a lot of this topic. So I had really good responses. So thanks for that. Zoe, yes, I'm very familiar with the Houston bios, all SFK type deaths, 22 in the recent times. So that's it. There's Hans making a comment.
Hey, there he is.
George Battalion, the Occult Book Rex. He wrote a lot. I forgot what his main kind of book was, but I have a couple. I don't have them at the ready, but in my library I've got Bataille books. He's on my radar.
Like the Accursed Chair, that's 2 volumes, right? So that's sort of his academic stuff. Then his some of his really dark S&M pornography was written under pseudonyms, right? On pen names, and those came out later, but I believe The Story of O and a couple of those other, that was made into a movie as well. But just his basic stuff you can get is that the Accursed Chair, volume 1 and 2. In fact, I may have it like sitting here. But
I just wanted to bring up also, like, people, we were kind of talking about how the cops are involved. Look at the finders and how that went away. In the 80s, they found a van full of feral children that are dirty and gross, and men in suits. They were transporting them to Mexico. And then when they looked in it was based in Washington, D.C., and they went and found like their home base, and there were all these, children's stuff in there, and there was photos of children taking apart a goat, like pulling goat guts out, and they found documents of how to steal children and sell them to China. And then all that went away under the rug. No, what? finder what? So
It actually was
people
the
should-
CIA came in and said this is an internal investigation.
Yeah,
matter.
CIA,
Yeah.
right?
And just a bit of not total tangent, but like say the McMartin, right? So they just released another couple films based on that. They're still pushing that, and you look at it like, oh, this looks interesting, and you read a little deeper, showing all the people that were harmed because of the false memory stuff. They're still pushing that. But Ted Gunderson,
Yeah.
so I got a lot of his original, documents. He had like a newsletter and all this stuff. And there's kind of a split view on him. Some people said that even though he was part of the McMartin thing, he actually worked to make sure that the prosecution didn't go through. Right. And so I don't know what you guys think about Ted Gunderson, because he was
Ed Opperman is the one who said that he discovered that he talks to Michael Aquino every day on the phone, and he was talking about that on his show. I'm like, whoa! Like
no, Ed had the guy on. I think his name was Steiner, who did the geological survey that found the tunnels. It tunneled into an apartment building next door, and of course, that whole McMartin place razed to the freaking ground, and now it's a dry cleaner. Like the evidence was just gone. Like they just
how
like,
poetic! It's a dry
just
cleaner,
like Charlie
dude.
Kirk. Yeah, it's exactly.
Wow.
It's actually perfect.
funny
And
thing is,
also,
I used to spend my
Hosanna
summers
Church-
right there. Oh, sorry. Go
the
ahead.
Hosanna Church had 2 cops in it, so they were part of the whole network, or 2 police officers.
Exactly. And if you look at the higher up orders of the Freemasonry and even regular cops, they're all widows' sons, they all go to their, the first level, the 3 levels of Freemasonry. But then the higher orders, you got the Shriners, and the Shriners do all the children's hospitals, right? And then above them, you got the Jokers, right? Like, or what do you call them? The Royal Order of Jesters. That's their name, ROJ. And they say life is just a big joke. And their main logo is like the smiley face, dude. There's this little guy that's just like making jokes and laughing. And that is populated by judges and police officers and prosecutors. What's their job? What do they do? Oh, they have vans, and they transport vans to Mexico. Really interesting. And they got this order of Quetzalcoatl, which is this higher order when they worship the bird snake of Mexico, where they would like cut hearts out while they're still beating and shit, blood drinking and what. So people need to really like understand that the cops some cops are not your friend. They work for them. Even Mark Passio would talk about how when he would do just regular, masterminds with his buddies in their black robes back when he was part of the LaVeyan Satanism, they would hire a cop to be outside the door, just like a Tyler of Freemasonry. They would be guarding the door, police officer right there. So like, it's all part of the system. And the hospitals, they collect all the body parts and the blood. Like, it's a system of control from all angles. All right, I'll let Hans take that. What do you think of that, Hans?
I was just saying that I actually was in, so my family, we're from Long Beach and Manhattan Beach. So I actually was right there when the McMartin thing happened. I was there in Manhattan Beach. And I just, honestly, maybe it's just like, I just actually remembered that now because it was going on. So yeah, my family is all that area, but right there, and there's this big, that whole thing was going on. And I remember being yelled at, like, don't go there or something. But anyways, just a weird thing. Luckily they didn't send me there. At least not that I remember.
That satanic panic made people, everybody was afraid to leave their kids like at a store. You lose your kids because some Satanist might come and take them. Oprah Winfrey had like Aquino on there, and they were talking about all that. It was like invading the minds of the people. Were very scared at that time, and I can understand why your parents would be like. Plus, it's right happening. But yeah, that like be afraid and don't let your kids be out in the neighborhood, and don't like get in a car with a stranger. Like that was all really pushed hard because of that satanic panic, right? And as it should have been, we should always take care of our kids. But that it was more. It was they were using it for the fear as well as covering it up, like kind of like 9/11. They were, it was a fear event, but then they were also covering up what really happened. At the same time, like to send us into this spiral of like, help.
But you should remember though too, it was one of those kind of left right things. So the educated people think this is a bunch of conservatards that are freaking out, right?
Oh, of course.
You know what I mean? There was, and you have Zappa, he was talking to free speech, PMRC, there's a lot of stuff going on. So there were two sort of opposing polarities, right? And so this whole thing of this just being a bunch of wacko, not wacko, but just ignorant hillbillies or whatever you want to call it, right? The deplorables, and then you have educated people, and this isn't possible. But then, of course, the reality is these things are so unbelievable. Like you look at the whole Franklin scandal, and you look at that stuff. It's hard to believe that this is actually happening. But then
it's easier for us to just say, no, that can't be true, and then it protects our own consciousness. Like nobody's doing that to children, right? It's so, like, I'm sorry, I interrupted. I'm really an a-hole. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry I interrupt so much. All right, so let me get back on track here, please, William.
We're interviewing you. Sorry, we're like the worst hosts ever. I'm following up on John. I'm trying to interrupt more than John. I can't do it. I'm just kidding. Go ahead, William. It's all you.
Well, I'm just trying to find this article about this guy, LaMonica. Followed by 8 members, central, all but one held without bond. Use of a church, close-knit relationship among the members, and victims unlikely to report abuse. Edward stopped short of saying the cult consisted of devil worshippers, but some defendants told investigators devil worship was the reason for their participation.
Right.
Edwards added defendants and witnesses also gave statement a dog was sexually abused and at least 2 cats were sacrificed. 24 computers, so it's a lot like the Finders. Tons of computers, like are they making child porn and selling it? And then LaMonica and his wife Robin also faced allegations of having sex with children in their home, but they didn't mention in this he was raping his 2 boys. Like, just crazy, just absolute craziness.
So yeah, it doesn't matter if it's in it. Like it'll happen in a church, it'll happen everywhere. There's no place safe from this kind of crap. Like the church only helps to hide it. It only helps to occult what's actually happening because people want to think nobody would do that, especially not a priest. How could they?
In True Detective, if you remember, the main character, kind of the driving force in the occult investigation, is McConaughey's character, but Rustin Cole. But they the whole thing is they think he's the one doing the killings, right? That's the whole interrogation motif through all the things, is that they think that he's doing it, but there's a mysterious death of he meets Tuttle. He's got a neon cross, which is a perfect symbol for that kind of Christianity, but it's the kind of insinuation through the thing is that McConaughey gets pissed off and kills the priest. It's not stated outright, but he has a mysterious death. And then McConaughey's seen at the crime scenes. Like they have pictures of him at the crime scenes. Like, what's he stalking the crime scenes? It's because he's been following this group of, occult killers, child killers for decades. It's really good. Watch it again. It's worth it. See little, you pick up little pieces that are in there that you may miss the first time.
Yeah, it's really well done. The first one's the best, I think. All the other ones are just trying to capture that what the first one was. Yeah, right. And also the church things. People should listen to Max Lowen. She is an experiencer of SRA who was abused under the Vatican, under the catacombs, and she witnessed babies being killed and eaten, and the demonization of the priests turning their faces, changing, drinking of blood, all that stuff. It split her mind, and she has a podcast now. Unbroken.global is her website. Everybody should check her out. She's very smart and very compassionate, awesome person.
Yeah, hopefully I'll try to get her on my my show, but
she's great. I hope she does.
But the thing is, though, again, we have to see that there is this overarching, there's connections, whatever level, people are at. There is this movement. I've been going back into like John Robinson, from 1790s, writing about the Illuminati, and who was actually around that, that whole thing, and this idea of this global process of destabilizing the entire culture in the world, right? So there's a big goal, right, to bring about the rule of Satan on earth or whatever. There is some overarching connections of this, and then again, you're saying like the pornography, how that affects the brain, and then pushing cannibalism, even pushing serial killers. Oh, it's cool to be a serial killer. Wow, that's pretty cool. You know what I mean? And so even the way that, say, Richard Ramirez, like people, were, idolizing him. Madonna is like, oh, he's great. He's like the pure spirit. He's so free. Seriously. Sean Penn was a big fan of, the Richard Ramirez, and these guys, so it's really, it's hard to kind of wrap your head around it, but I don't know what you guys think about this. Obviously you have bit players, you have these kind of actors, but there's obviously some overarching organizational factors that go beyond just, why do you want to destabilize society with terror? Why do you, why is this stuff being promoted, and how do people get into these things voluntarily? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I feel like there's a bigger agenda that's whether or not, whatever the direct sort of connection, pyramidal connection. But again, like with the Illuminati, you have all these people, only a few people will know, but with the right agents of influence, you can influence literally hundreds of thousands of people. But at every stage down that pyramid, you're going to have less and less information, and different agendas. But
But the symbols stay the same. If you can understand the symbols, you can decode what's coming down, right? I mean, on our show, and I still haven't published it yet, the last one that we did about the Kleepoth. I mean, isn't that like an organized destruction of society in our brains? It's like you yourself, Hans, have been describing that, and it's like it's a stepwise progression, and we're getting closer,
I want to recommend a great film by one of my all-time favorite, Susan Sontag, right? The great feminist. Her movie she made 1969, Duet for Cannibals. So she made a film, Duet for Cannibals, 1969. That's, the feminine mystique and all that. So that's a duet. I just threw that out there, but I don't know. I saw that the other day, the Duet for Cannibals.
Oh,
1969. Wow. So yeah, she wrote, directed, and edited the film. So that was her. That's right. Your feminism right there. Okay. I know that's a little bit obscure.
But the picture says it all. She's got a little idol of a male, like in her hand.
Like Oscar.
Yeah, she's not bitter, angry, or
she's holding it like a gun, though. She's like 007 cover, right?
That's where I have men. I'm a witch. Well, I did a show where like the guy, I can't remember his name, but he basically said like all feminists emulate witch tropes, witch morality, and everything. They're like anti-life witch people.
That was
like he's right.
Right. Well, it was created by Satanism. Like feminism is a devouring of our society. If they can get all women to hate all men, there will be no more birth. Like it will destroy humanity. Right. So like it's the ultimate us against them. Like if you can it's because 50% of the planet. Like you can get like this many Democrats going against this many Republicans. Maybe it's like 10 or 12% like that are actually going to fight and stuff. But if you can get 50% of both sides of the whole world to fight each other, then that's, order ab teo, right there.
Social pestilence. Susan Sontag is a witch. The guy's name is Edward Dutton, and the one we did is Witches, Feminism, and the Fall of the West. So I got to have him back on my show.
That sounds great. I want to hear that.
Yeah, that's very not publicly acceptable conversation. Is like, oh yeah, by the way, all feminists are witches.
But
not far from the truth.
But it's if we talk bad about Kinsey, everybody gets mad too. You know what I mean?
People got pissed. I've talked to people and they're like, how can you besmirch this guy? He's like a real adventure. I'm like,
Oh, all
a freaking
babies are
monster,
sexual since birth. Like what?
dude, do you know he was raping
What?
babies and doing experiments on infants? You freak!
Yeah,
Like how
dude.
this thing
Oh my god.
And he died
No,
from hanging his Johnson from the hanging by his
Yeah,
Johnson.
his
So it's-
orchitis on his
orchitis.
his
Yeah, he
balls.
typed a rope around his testicles.
He circumcised himself with a penknife.
He was doing that. Yeah, that he's out. He's
He
like
was
the
sadomasochist.
sod, dude.
He was one of these
Modern
people
version.
that we're talking about, where their brains just like Labas and like all these freaking people. That, he was crazy, and the Rockefellers were like, "Ooh, we can use him. Let's put him on a pedestal." And now that's society. Okay, the more you look at like. Really everything is satanic, like the feminism and the satanic, not like, oh, some guy with horns, but like anti-human, killing the world, like involution, worshiping death, you know what I mean? Death cult shit, like that's what it is. And it's always been that shit. And it's like, these are all just the bubblings out of that type of psychology, like, oh, feminism is happening because Satanism, right? Cannibalism is happening because Satanism, like, snuff films, like all this stuff is like imposed on us by these psychopaths that have been ruling us since Babylon. Sorry, guys, I'll shut up.
Well, and one thing to note is that, like, which Richcraft and I had sort of my massage therapist I was going to was actually a witch. She had like this sorcerer's broom from it was like from 1650, and she had all this stuff, and she did some weird stuff to me. I got over, but I mean, I didn't. She like that was not good. But people. The thing to understand is that a lot of people, even say when I was in graduate school, there was a guy, he was a Satanist. He had his, big pentagram. He was a graduate student in music theory or something. I guess that would make anybody a Satanist, right? But it just was like, because everybody is a materialist atheist. So it's just something you're doing. Oh, we'll just connect with nature. And a lot of people, I had friends, like one guy, unfortunately, he committed suicide. He said his girlfriend was a witch from a long practicing lineage, and he said she cursed him, so he went nuts. But he was he's like, oh, this is pretty cool, man, because you just do what you want. And, this is like, he was a super nice guy, right? He wasn't someone you would say this guy's a Satanist, but what is LaVey on the surface level? It's sort of Nietzschean, sort of, do what thou wilt,
right.
And just, whatever, egotism, right?
Ayn Rand, like
Ayn Rand, yeah.
Yeah.
But then when people think that there's nothing behind it, and and then of course once
it's
you
harmless, it's fine.
you got to come back from that, right?
Yeah.
But and it's just like, I'll never, unfortunately, that kind of turned me off from witches when my massage therapist like friggin' put a curse on me or whatever the hell she did. But I mean, it's weird, right? I just thought, oh, she's a witch. Okay. I just thought, but no, I mean, she was, she had her coven she was part of and had this land, and they had these rituals, a place called Hocking Hills in Ohio out in the woods. And man, it's like, wow. And, there's this stuff is there, and you do need, I'm just throwing this out there. You do need to be cognizant. Not everybody, even the people you think maybe seem nice, other forces can come through them. You don't need to be wacky or this or that. But the fact is that if you're not conscious of this, and you're not conscious, especially if you go to a certain level of knowledge, right? Or a certain level of public speaking, or just a certain level of however you're living your life, you can get things, that will come to you. People will leave things in your house. People give you gifts. You think this stuff doesn't have any effect. It sure as hell can. And it's not just psychological. So it just means, it's like anything else, once you understand it, then you can take care of it. But if you ignore it, which I regrettably, I did, well, okay, it's nothing. This is just, no, it's not. In a lot of, unfortunately, these women are like very frustrated, some of them, and they will take it out on the man, I mean, sorry to say.
We don't want to be hating the other half of our species, though. That adds to the, the
I love women.
divide of the feminism.
I love women and whatever, worship the goddess. Just don't cast black magic spells.
Yeah. Well, they're doing what they wilt, and they don't care, right? And that whole thing of like, they take the first half of Crowley's thing, do what you want, and then they leave love is the law. Like, you gotta love everything and everyone, and then love gives you your will. If you trust that, then you're a good person. But they just wanted the first half of do what we want, right? I can be God in this world of my own God, and I can create my own rules. And like, it's a selfishness, and to the point of like, what is the Marquis de Sade is being pretty selfish as he's like abusing women and killing and whatever. It's selfishness and egotism, like to the max. Like that's what LaVeyan stuff was doing. It's like worshiping ego, and like ego is the best at my individual character, And then when you look at the Qliphoth, that's the same thing. Like they go down the tree all the way to the end. It's separation from creation completely. Like it's where they believe they can start their own world or whatever the hell, I mean, I think that's part of the psychology is they want to be separate. That's, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, and I'll let William go, but I mean, one thing, because I spent so much time in India or whatever, is that, you see, like, so they have on the books, black magic. You can be convicted of the crime of practicing black magic, right? So they're much more, in general, they're aware of these things, and, you know what I mean? So it's not considered whatever. It's not, I'm trying to freak people out, but it's like, well, if you just think I'm in a materials paradigm, this is all psychological. Maybe a lot of things are psychological, certain things aren't. So if it's kind of like if there's there's a Somalian gang down the street for me. I know they're there, but I'm not going to go hang out there. Maybe I should make some new friends, right? They got to bust out their machetes.
Bring some old English and say,
hey, you want to have some roast white guy? That's not really funny. They did that. They came. The guy hacked up a bunch of people with a machete. But anyways, but it's the same thing. And it's these gradual progression. They say like the gateway drug, whatever. You start out, you have a beer, whether that's true or not, but it is the gateway drug of this egotism and the selfishness, and even you get into rituals, and the ritual gets deeper and deeper. So I think a lot of people are also led down this path, and then at a certain point they can't go back, and then they're enveloped. Would you agree?
I agree.
Yeah, it's a road. Like that's the next thing you know, you're George Bataille, some secret society, or Marquis de Sade. Really good movie based on 1,000 Days of Sodom is Salo by Pierre Paolo.
Yeah, that's what he mentioned. That the other title is 100 or 1,000, 101 or whatever.
Well, the movie's based
120
on
days. Yeah, that's sick.
But it's also based on Italian.
Through it, I was like, okay, I've downloaded the thing, and I clicked through, and I like. Gross, disgusting. Oh my god, that's gross. Oh my god, I can't watch this. Like I can't.
But it's about elite abuse and ritual murder. Really, right. It's really kind of his critique of fascism at the time. Salo was where Mussolini went. Kind of the rump state that the Germans kept after they abducted him was Salo. So that was his critique. And then Pasolini kind of mysteriously dies, getting run over by a car or something like that.
Right, so he released the movie, right?
Like it was just kind of like mysterious death and not unsolved.
Didn't they keep the movie down? They didn't like release it or some shit too?
I don't know what the whole story is, but it's really a dark ride. But I think that he was kind of telling the truth. Like people do this. Like this is the elites,
right? How
they blow off steam, and there's like stuff like from de Sade, like corporophilia, like this, and they're all like young. So it's like old against the young and like pedophilia. It's really dark.
They're like making the kids bend over and they're judging each one's a-hole, and they're like, oh, I like a girl's a-hole better than a boy's a-hole, or whatever.
It opens
Oh,
with that
super
child
dark.
market, right? So they
Oh,
have
yeah.
the market for
Oh.
children, right? So they're buying and selling children. You go back to Joan Benet Ramsey, right?
Right.
That whole case, the teen, I mean the whatever the infant, I mean young girl beauty pageants, right? And these, I mean, so this does appear to be going on, and most likely going on as we speak, right? I think it's kind of inserted into the elite culture as maybe something that's completely acceptable. Just like Ewan Cameron thinks it's acceptable to torture people because he's one of the technocratic elites, and these are just whatever, right? These are just, you know,
When they own people, they believe they can do that. If they believe they are the master and you are the slave, then they are, there is no remorse for what they do. Like,
You don't know what was going on in those sleep rooms, too. Like, if you can subject
Right.
people to amnesia,
Yeah.
who says they're not sexually abusing them? Like so there is sexual abuse in hospitals and things like that happen.
If you look at the research, like of the Satanists, the sexual abuse is part of it. It has to be sexual because it's the most humiliating, and it has to be from like your dad or your mom or some shit. That's like a person that's supposed to protect you, and then they abuse you in that specific way, is what breaks the mind. Like you could just hit him in the head with a frying pan all the time, but the sexual abuse and the humiliation is what really. And then like, I don't care about you, and then it comes to like a Stockholm of like, oh, go ahead and abuse me, and yes, I would deserve it. You know what I mean? Like, but the sexual abuse is part of it. So probably Cameron was doing that because he knew. Like, anyway, like we know that they were this G.H. Estabrooks was talking about this stuff with the FBI from, I don't know, like, was there sexual stuff in
35. I don't know. I don't think
35.
he really got into the sexual element of it.
Right. But I mean, they were talking about it. They knew about it. And, the Nazis were doing it. I know all the Hitler fans out there are like, no, don't besmirch my heroes. But yeah, dude, it's everybody was abusing these kids, these goddamn. Anyway, it's
good
it's
comment by Murder by Maestro. Think about how many thousands of people went through these programs. I think it's in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands.
Right.
So, like, it's a huge number, and it's all either kept quiet. Nobody focuses on it. It's all done by intentional. It's all intentional. I mean, because the media does not ever want to address it in depth. They just don't, because it's too damning. And it also exposes their kind of current programs and things that are happening today.
I think also, I mean, there's different levels, and I don't want to be too biographical. I mean, this is not, my parents used to drop me off to Lewisburg Penitentiary, that it was a big MK Ultra place, and there was the Leonard Peltier, but I don't remember anything that happened there. Hopefully nothing happened, but I mean, there's things where, that you get these inputs, right? Or even just the trauma. I mean, look what's going on in the schools now with the transgender stuff, and what they're doing with the social stuff, and the promotions. They have this Lord of the Flies, mentality. I mean, look at the books you read. Like, we have to read a book called Go Ask Alice. You familiar with that? So this is a diary of a girl who just goes insane from taking a bunch of LSD and whatever. This is reading this in, middle school, and then Lord of the Flies, Catcher in the Rye, right? These are like, and
then they hung I lack on your chest with that paper plate you're talking about on my show, dude.
Maybe I'm an MK Ultra victim. No, but so that was, but think about that.
Catcher in the Rye is even darker. It's getting darker because I looked into, I think somebody made the comment on our last show that one of his wives in the 50s was close to Henry Murray, who is the guy who tortured Kaczynski. And that wife was like with Murray in the 30s, before Murray did The Mind of Adolf Hitler or any of that other stuff, or the Kaczynski stuff, who was 16 at the time. If you remember, they got him young, like a genius young guy tortured. But that overlapping connection between Salinger and Murray is mind-blowing. It's incredible. And it brings Catcher in the Rye in a completely different light once you actually know that he's hanging out with Henry Murray's he's married Henry Murray's wife. Like, they're hanging out for years together, like decades, doing all kinds of like, experiments, psychological experiments. She's a psychologist too. And so you see that psychological depth in Catcher in the Rye, and then 65 million people read it. Crazy.
That book, though, I mean, these are documents that, he was part of the OSS, right? Bateson developed a schismogenesis model using weaponized anthropology during World War II. OSS, how to create societal divisions, right? And Salinger was part of OSS also. And part of this was this type of media inputs, right? How do you there's different type of vectors. You can input, if you look at a cybernetics model, you're inputting an information stream in order to generate a type of governance, right? So you can look at that Catcher in the Rye as an inputted stream into the cultural milieu that is actually the book itself. I mean, it is, I think it's not a normally written book, right? It is written in a way, and you can find this a lot in sometimes of these books that are, deployments of studies that are put out in a popularized form. There's things that are written where you read and your mind kind of blanks out, right? Right. And this is set up there. And this is, you can find like there'll be a couple sentences or a word doesn't make sense. And you realize, I missed that paragraph. I didn't catch that. Or they're meant to be read almost on a subconscious type of programming way, right? So you know what I mean? Does that make sense? So and you find that in a lot of things, even of course, Aldous Huxley, H.G. Wells, tons of his stuff, right? The New World Order. I mean, H.G. Wells, all these books, The Time Machine, all this stuff, and his, of course, Fabian socialist connections. And so this is an example of literature. And then you look at, say, the pedestal, right? Catcher in the Rye is on a pedestal. It's, why do kids read this? And my son, he started wearing this Holden Caulfield hat. I said, dude, he's like, oh, it's a good book. I like him. I said, nope, that's going in the fire. So, but seriously, I mean, these become, and then especially at the age, this is the mirroring stage, right? You take these people as your heroes. So you think Holden, I feel a little bit disaffected. So I'm going to connect maybe consciously, maybe subconsciously with Holden Caulfield, right? Or any, the Clockwork Orange guys or whatever it may be, right? So I think this also is not as dramatic effect as a direct type of ritual abuse, but it is sort of, it creates a terrain, right? As Kurt Lewin says, a psychological topology, and you create different things and you can create centers you have a single point, you spread that out, you put in different informational flows from media, from education, from this, from that, and sometimes even very subtle, and then add Estabrooks and hypnotic command structures. Then you get a very interesting landscape. Right. And again, with the principle of entrainment, if you get a certain type of field structure in a group psychological dynamic, that will affect others around them, whether or not, it will affect you. To the extent it affects you depends on the degree you're conscious, depends on the degree that, you have negative emotions or not, or this or that, but right, we all have experienced this, right? I mean, it's you can go and you see different days, you see everybody's acting in a certain way. And if you're just in a bad mood and you're reactive, you have road rage or whatever, then you just got locked into that. You just got entrained into this, right? So,
look at Altamont. They created this situation and they created all that, and then it ended up with the murder and all this chaos happening. Anyway, that goes with the Kleepath that you're talking about also, Hans. That is like controlling the mass psychology through this entrainment and creating this, like, basically satanifying the world, yeah. So William, we wanted to talk about this document here, that I posted it on my Odyssey.
I think we should finish Program to Kill. We haven't finished that yet.
Oh, right. Okay. All right then.
Don't you think?
Let's do that. Yeah, please. I'd be happy to read if you want to bring it up on the screen here.
We are at the vulnerability. God, why can't I say that? Of children to dissociative states. That's where we're at.
Okay. All right, here we go. Page, well, whatever. This is the intro. Okay.
XVIII.
Right. The vulnerability of children.
Page 18.
Okay, thank you. The vulnerability of children to dissociative states brought on by traumatic abuse is one of the reasons that the CIA and other intelligence agencies have played key roles in the creation of relatively mainstream satanic groups, as well as in denying the existence of underground satanic cults engaged in violent criminal enterprises. Now, we talk about how that whole satanic panic is one of those cover-ups. We just talked about that earlier today. Some of the available evidence suggests that an array of satanic groups have served as intelligence agency fronts for many control operations, which actually makes perfect sense, considering that if the goal is to severely traumatize children, then surely nothing compares to the seemingly outlandish stories told by those who have survived what has been dubbed satanic ritual abuse, SRA. So, like, it's so horrific that couldn't be true. It helps with the occultation. And people can look, I think it's Indiana, maybe, or Illinois, has the court has defined what satanic ritual abuse is. And it's a list of actions, including like putting children in coffins and burying them alive with snakes and spiders and stuff, and like just this list. And they don't have to, this way the court doesn't have to prove you believe in Satan, because it's like, how do you prove that? What it does is it says you did these acts, this is considered this, you know. And we can see it's so common and it happens so everywhere. It's not just, you know, all the victims can't be having the same experience and it all be from their imagination, because everybody has such an individual imagination. Everything would be different. Why is it that all the stories are the same? Why is it that it's these, you know, 12 or 15 acts that always happen to the poor children? Why do they have to eat feces? Why do they have to be raped by their parents? You know, like, anyway, so like it is definable, and it's not such a like a obscure weird topic. You know, it's like even the courts have defined it and give it handles to really get a hold of this. So all right, here we go. I'll keep going, unless anybody wants to say anything. Do you have any comments on that? No? Okay. Moving on. Verdier took note in his book of the fact that one of the most pronounced emotional experiences that a human being can undergo is having his or her life threatened. Threats of death are used as a basic tool by brainwashing communists. Even among them, however, this threat is used sparingly, for they know that humans quickly adapt to this type of threat, especially if it is repeatedly given, but never carried out. In order to avoid this routinization of stressful emotional situations, they have been known to casually execute prisoners for the apparent effect it has on others. So when you see others die, it affects you, and this is, I mean, okay. Anyway, moving on. The actions that Verdier predictably attributed to brainwashing communists precisely mirror the stories that have been told repeatedly by self-described survivors of ritual abuse. These victims speak of receiving frequent death threats directed against both themselves and their family members. They speak also of having those threats reinforced through their forced witnessing of, and even participate in, the killing of others. A lot of times little kids will have to hold the knife and their programmer will hold their hand on the knife and do the killing, you know, and then that internalizes the guilt into the young child, that forever they're like, oh, I killed, you know, and then that further occults, and it further separates their mind. Their conscious mind doesn't want to know they were part of it. This is the lengths that they will go to. Okay, here, where was I? Here, let's see. There has been a tremendous amount of energy expended to discredit all such stories. At the forefront of the movement to deny the validity of these stories told by countless survivors is the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, a group that led by a truly vile coalition of CIA-funded psychiatrists and accused, in parentheses, and in some cases convicted, pedophiles. Also playing a key role in the movement are Paul and Shirley Eberle, the authors of a purportedly... Eberle. Okay, Eberle. The authors of a purportedly authoritative book entitled The Politics of Child Abuse. The Eberle's book attempts to lay the blame for virtually all child abuse accusations and prosecutions on overzealous prosecutors, therapists, and parents. The argument might be a little more credible, however, if the Eberles themselves were not known to Los Angeles police as distributors of child pornography, a fact that media outlets conveniently and rather consistently ignore while touting the Eberles as authorities in the field of child abuse. Yeah, they're because they know how to do it. Yeah, takes one to know one.
It's so sinister. Like, they inserted themselves into this stuff. Like, that's how dark it is. Like, what the heck are you guys doing here? That's right. Like part of the evidence of the cover-up. It's the same thing's happening after this whole Kirk assassination. It's like you can see them shaping the conversations around Kirk and pushing it certain ways, and misinformation, malinformation, disinformation. It's like the techniques too. And these Eberle people were like that, super creepy. Like they have them on record in some kind of child porn book or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but I vaguely remember like they're doing this, but they're also on some like pedo material. I forgot what it was.
As I mentioned in the beginning, there's just 4 movies with this year and last year, a couple documentaries, a couple fictional films, exactly using their material as the basis. These Eberles, their stuff is being used still and being put out decades later. And Sean, I forget the name of the movie. This came out a couple years ago, and I thought it was really interesting. It's about this girl, is like, molested or something, and there's some kind of weird cult. And then at the end of it, you watch the whole film. All these people's lives are ruined. You think, this is like, oh, there's justice finally. It turns out, no, she made it up just because she had some attitude problem and destroyed all these people's lives. So you went on the hook yourself through the whole movie, and right at the end, they flip the script. Right. And suddenly it's all just BS. And then they have the little footnote, the satanic panic in the 1980s ruined many people's lives. So, but they're still pushing it. Why? Right? Why?
Because it still happens.
No, but I mean, why are they still pushing this false memory syndrome?
Because that's the only thing they got. They got nothing else, and they created it. They might as well put more money into it. I mean, they also had that thing debunking the Michelle Remembers just recently on Netflix, and the movie you're talking about is probably on Netflix too. We talked about how Netflix is so evil, but they just
had like a transgender thing come out. Like,
probably.
I think I'm a woman. Like they're promoting so total crazy. Evil. These people are of the devil. They're total demon. The whole country is demon possessed, man. It's full of evil people. Oh, the way to look at it. I mean, I've seen the change in one generation. Like the culture. I used to remember growing up watching Mutual of Omaha, Wild Kingdom, like super, normal stuff on the shows, on evening shows. And now it's just like they're pushing just the darkest pitch black evil stuff, mind control, the whole bit.
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood with Mr. Green Jeans playing the piano. Hello, little creepy.
But Mysterious Adventures with Arthur C. Clarke. He's playing ping pong with his little boy toy, talking about rainbow fish falling from the sky. Like,
Or
I mean, there was crazy shit on TV like forever.
Kiss, Kiss, the rock band Kiss had this TV show where they were like they're flying in this spaceship and stuff. I remember it. It was, I don't know, man. But no, but you know what? I didn't want to go there to keep my academic credentials going. But I talked about the psychological topology. This also can relate to energetic field structures and arrays, and we can call some of these things, if either guided, egregore, thought form, or entities that can affect thousands of people. These things are much larger. Some of them are much bigger than a single person. So this can actually affect hundreds and hundreds of people, right? And so this type of, and the degree, I mean, the degree, you could say full possession and influence, like just with the road rage, just see people, the way people are just driving like friggin' maniacs. You know what I mean? Like really seeing this, like, so this is an example of that. And I think it was last week we talked about all the kids doing like that, whatever TikTok challenge or whatever that is. That's another example. So this goes from psychological states to this encoding, right? So you can actually look at this as small scale type of possession, or even possession doesn't mean you have to be speaking in tongues like the exorcist. You can have that influence, and it basically what's going to do is feed off of your negative emotions and magnify them, and then you do things you don't even know why you did it, or you just start going. And this is, I think this is part of it, is to create this type of thing. I mean, look, they're trying to generate the Civil War right now, right? And so this, it's and then you wonder, like, who's behind this? I mean, you already have all the wealth in the world. What do you need? You have to make sure everyone else is miserable. Then we have to live in these little boxes, hooked up to the AI virtual reality, and just with Elon Musk's, things stuck in our brains, and just, we can just watch porn all day. Oh, right. I mean, seriously, it's really not, it's pretty messed up, man. And pornography, you guys have probably looked into this, there's many cases of people who have come out of the porn industry or talked about how they would do rituals. So the pornography, and if what's something that's used, say chaos magic, it's whacking off, right? You release the seed when you're looking at the image, and something will come through that. They use this pornography, can be used as a, like kind of videodrome type of energetic portal. So it's all over the place.
There was that director from the 80s that got Tracy Lords. He was a Satanist, and he was doing that shit. You should look into that. I forget his goddamn name, but yeah, that dude.
He had like an Italian last name. I remember that guy, and there was a couple others who were into the occult.
Right.
And some of that stuff's like, it's Salo level, like it's super. Talk about that spectrum. Like, I've seen people in the porn, former porn stars, like, they wanted me to barf on, and I had to get down on all fours like a dog, and it's just horrible stuff.
Right. Humiliation stuff, right? Why would that be part of it? Why would they do that? And why? And then it's going into the viewers while they are feeling pleasure, dopamine. Because
and then there's like kids exposed to that, and they're like, that's normal to them now. There's some of the stuff that the kids talk about, like, you're like, wow, that's super.
There's testimony.
Like, how do you know all this? Wow, crazy.
That there's a documentary called Childhood 2.0. I talk about it all the time, and there's kids talking about, like, middle schoolers talking about what it is to have porn in their pocket all the time with the phone, and the little girls are like talking about how the boys want them to act like the girls in the movie. Come on, dude. They're changing
a whole
society.
New subculture. It's called gooning, Goon, and it's just like, that's what they grew up with. That's what they know is gooning. And so they know the porn stars. There's like videos I've seen on social media where like teen kids, hey, I know you. They know these like porn stars, like the celebrities. It's crazy.
But I mean, what a disgusting and humiliating profession.
Right.
And also, I mean, what a debased. I mean, okay, for the men is one thing, right? But for the women, it really is a destruction of the feminine, right? And it's a destruction of actual love. How can yeah, when you're young, and whatever, you fall in love. Okay, you don't know, it's not like, oh, I want to, whatever, do some, super porn sex with you. It's like, no, you have these feelings and emotions. This is how family structures work. But look at the Playboy Mansion, right? And there's a documentary, like one of these ladies, you feel bad for her, but yet she got into the inner circle and she would recruit other girls, and it got more and more and more and more debased, including, I mean, just absolute humiliation. You after would just watch, right? And the women and she said, something was done to me. It'll never come back, because your soul got harvested. And this, and Hefner was, I mean, but that's the level. I don't want to relate details, but that level, yeah.
Do you guys know about the Instagram models being lured to Dubai for doo-doo potty stuff? They get pooped on. Like, they think they're going over there to be a hooker or something for like a couple weeks, and they get like captured and beat up and pooped on and raped, obviously, that too. But I mean, it's a thing. It's a whole
industry. It's called yachting too. I mean, it's
it's
a subset of that. They're rented for the weekend. They go on the yacht, and they have to,
they have to give away. I mean, on a boat, like, anybody who's seen like Always Sunny, the psycho that he's like, oh, just the implication, when you're on a boat, they can't run away. Like, oh, they got to do what you say.
Isn't that what Ted Kennedy said? Or
probably, dude.
He would try to get his women on the boat so they couldn't get out.
Yeah, and Ted Kennedy, if you listen to Bryce Taylor, he beats the crap out of women, makes them almost dead, and he can't get it up unless he's beating them up to bloody and almost killing them. Ted Kennedy, the guy who was in the Senate forever.
Chappaquiddick.
Chappaquiddick.
You should have saved that girl. Kopechne
Right.
should be alive.
Right.
She was in like 4 feet of water or something. It was nothing.
And
There's
her fingernail scratches on the dashboard. Like, dude.
No, yeah, that whole story's weird. Some people have tried to justify that story, but that's like a story of elite depravity and decadence, really, because he just left her to drown.
Yeah. And just acted like he walked away and like, oh, nothing happened.
They said when he was talking, he was like almost dissociated, like it didn't matter. Like he didn't think that she was dead. He didn't even know. Maybe he was blackout drunk. I don't know. But like his response to it, and it effectively ruined his political career, his presidential hopes. That was it.
But what's amazing, though, is we started out talking about Gilles de Rais, right? We're literally having these things are mainstreamed, right? And this is, people are gravitating toward, I mean, you talk about the kids. I mean, what does that do to you? Right? Yes, there's always a percentage. You have a certain percentage of people who are born hermaphrodites, right? You have people that are whatever, I mean, there's some, there's always going to be any population of any animal, anything, there's going to be certain outliers, right? But to mainstream this stuff, which is actually, it is barbaric. It does violence to the spirit, to the mind, to the soul. And what pleasure is there in that? There, you know what I mean? If you have, I mean, but yet this is like, I mean, I'm actually shocked, right? But think about Gilles de Rais. I mean, it's now like everybody's a junior Gilles de Rais, almost. Not everybody, not me, but but seriously.
And what about the Jacob Frank and the, Sabotage Zevi and all that crap? Like that, wasn't that the same too? Is this? Do you think, Hans?
Well, Sabotage Zevi, I mean, that was, of course, he was the.
I mean, he was like opposite of morality, right?
Well, so was Sabotage Zevi, of course, you have to say, like, he had millions of followers, right? He was huge. I'm sure everyone knows who he is. 1666, Nathan of Gaza declared him to be the Messiah, and he had followers all over the world, and so he was doing Lurian Kabbalistic magical practices. He had manic depressive stuff, but basically the whole idea was that we want to bring God back, and in order to do that, you must do evil, violate every convention, incest, rape, murder, whatever. But it was ritual. The extent to which it went is hard to tell. I mean, obviously this filtered into, I mean, you have all the elites, coming from Jakob Frank, his reincarnation. Rothschilds were also, members of his church, Catholic Church, infiltrated Islam, Turkey, the Donme, right? All this stuff infiltrated. But, this idea, though, of doing evil is your spiritual duty. This is your duty to do this. And then this ties into earlier, you go back to Hassani Saba II, who said the chains of law have been broken. Nothing is real. Everything is permitted. Right. So it's kind of, and you have like the Friends of God thing from the Middle Ages, also these kind of weird, there's some other kind of weird, these cults. So, I mean, the thing is the Zabattians, to get the exact, even Jakob Frank, you try to read his writing, it's totally encoded. I mean, everybody's trying to read his actual writings, unless you know what I mean? A lot of this stuff was oral tradition. But I mean, Zabbatai Zevi, though, I mean, that redemption through sin, right? This became a major, major impact, right, on cultural elites. And still, I mean, there's still, to this day, there's still Zabbateans, hidden Zabbateans in Turkey. To this day, they still exist. But especially for the elites, this really, it captured the imagination of some of the royalty, right? It captured whatever elite society, right? So eyes wide shut, right? That's an example of a type of Sabbatean ritual practice. But again, there's not, at least as far as
everything backward. The guy's walking around backward, like left-hand path, and they playing the music backwards. It's backwards, everything, right? So I've been saying this eyes wide shut thing. It's the same as what you're saying. Right?
But then the thing is that you have to look, there's the levels, the elites that are engineering this and how they're feeding, and then the dummies who get involved, right? Because they're actually getting harvested, right? Their energies, their spirits, they're being destroyed. They're becoming husks of human beings, right? At a certain point, you can't go back. You go into this debased sexuality stuff or whatever it is, especially if you're abused or an abuser. This gradualism, you're not the elite. You're not, you're not, what I mean? You're just you're the donkey, or whatever. You're the friggin', the Smurf or something. I don't know.
The prima materia of their alchemy and the whole society. You're just, you're a golem for them to wield. Look at that that 1933 thing that we had where they're burning the baby to Moloch in Chicago, Wrigley Field or wherever. It is a satanification. I think and it's the inevitable end of psychopathy. And these psychopaths are going to get together and work together in their little conspiracies together. We can all work in this hierarchical situation, and we can own the world, and we can rape and kill, and we can do whatever we want, and we can make money, and we can create society, and we can make the very words they use. They are our slaves. We can harvest them as we wish. That obviously. And then once you're part of that system, okay, then you're following orders, okay, and then eventually, when it gets up to the highest level, who are they talking to? Non-corporeals, right? That are also, they want to feed on the pain and anguish of the regular humans. So it's like a kind of a symbiotic relationship between the humans and the demons, and they have specific information that we can learn from them, and they can teach us about like timeless events, and anyway, I'm sorry, but I kind of went off the rails a little bit, but I'm gonna keep reading if you guys don't have anything else.
I'll say one last comment. As an analogy or maybe metaphor, it's like the AZT, right? AZT, and then the poppers, amyl nitrate with the San Francisco bathhouse scene, right? So you're doing that. You're taking AZT. You're just doing it up in the bathhouse. Macho man. Village people. All right, but what are you doing? You're weakening your immune system, and this is your human your spiritual immune system, your human nature, your ancestral, whatever you want to call it, you're reducing it, you're cutting it down more and more and more, and then you're going to get infected with anything, and you have no more protection left and that's what's happening to the society and the culture. I think that that's part of it, right? For like the lady who was in that documentary on Hugh Hefner, she seems like a nice person, but she didn't stop, right? But she had gone too far because, oh, I'm with Hugh. Hugh likes me, so I become a recruiter. And then, she's, doing this horribly debased things. You're not coming back. You lost, you're gone. Sorry. And that's too bad. But does that make sense? Right. So it's like you're weakening the immune system, you're engaging in the behavior, and those who are engineering it, that are standing on top, are able to harvest that. But then you're also weakening the whole social fabric. And there's certain things. How do you get then? But there's protection available. There's lots of protection. You have to avail yourself of that. But at a certain point, you can't get that protection because you have crossed certain thresholds and you can't come back from it.
Plus, if you fall into the egregor of the evil psychology of the Satanism, then you think it's right and good, and you're like this is our true nature and crap, and so you get fooled into that, and then you are like William was talking about the Order of Nine Angles and how that is spread, and how this it's just a satanic philosophy that is just taken up by people willingly. Oh, that makes sense. Like I fell into LaVeyanism when I was a teenager. Like I was just, atheist, and yeah, that makes sense. Like it's like an infection in that way as well, and so like that can be combined, where they're getting the psychology of the Satanism, and they're dabbling in the crazy sex rituals and the abusing of stepwise into that, like that Danish banker guy I was talking about. He was on YouTube talking about how he would go to these rituals and he would get promoted, and eventually there was kids there, and he was like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. Like I don't want to be part of that. And then he broke away. But it's a stepwise thing. And all the while it's training your brain in many ways. Like but the people that accept it willingly are, they get a greased pathway to the top. Like look at Bill Clinton. What the hell did he agree to? Anyway, so like it is like this is a free will existence, right? They have to trick you into accepting it, and I believe that it is it's a process which takes a long time. The Fabian thing is satanic. It's a black wolf in that sheep clothing. All right, I'm going to keep reading here. That's all good, right? So there's only a little bit left. So contrary to conventional wisdom, claims of ritual abuse are certainly not a modern phenomenon. Such claims have actually been around for quite some time, and they were given legitimacy by no less an historical figure than Sigmund Freud. Over 100 years ago, Freud recognized that ritual abuse is likely the primary cause of the psychological problems that he observed in his female patients. I brought this up before a couple episodes back. I'm glad this is here. Author Kevin Marin noted that Freud had commented on the marked similarity between what his patients told him and the accounts of the witchcraft confessions of the 16th century. In a letter to a colleague written in January 1897, Freud pondered, quotes, "But why did the devil who took possession of the poor things invariably abuse them sexually and in a loathsome manner? Why are their confessions under torture so like the communications made by my patients in psychological treatment? If Freud were alive today, he might well add, and why are the And why are the communications made by my patients a century ago so like the stories told to therapists today by survivors of SRA? Should this remarkable consistency spanning several centuries have attributed to some kind of recurring mass hysteria, or can it best be explained by the fact that, as historians and the Chicago Tribune have noted, satanic cults have been documented in Europe and America as far back as the 1600s? Has there always been something dark and evil lurking in the shadows, only occasionally raising its head, and at which times its existence is denied, its perpetrators cast as victims, and its real victims mocked and ridiculed? To ponder such a question, alas, requires calling into question some of our most fundamental beliefs about the nature of the world we live in. And that is decidedly unsettling venture. Perhaps when viewed in the context of a covert, state-sponsored mind control program, Perhaps when viewed in the context of a covert state-sponsored mind control program, some readers can begin to understand not only why there might be those who are motivated to inflict appalling levels of abuse on some of America's children, but also why so much effort would be expended attempting to discredit claims of horrific abuse if the victims are in fact valid. Truth be told, the stories told by survivors of ritual abuse tend to be self-discrediting. One of the potential benefits, therefore, of cloaking mind control activity in satanic rituals is that the operations are largely immune to disclosure. Even if an operation is uncovered, the stories told by the children tend to be so outlandish, so far removed from the world that we know, that the claims are easily cast aside as the product of a child's fertile imagination. Now, I just want to note that it takes an intelligent, imaginative child to split into, they have to choose imaginative children who are creative and intelligent in order to make the internal worlds. Because anyway, so that is true. These children do have fertile imaginations, but they are constructed by the programmer to be a certain way. So, just like in the movie, in the book, Manchurian Candidate. So in May 2000, however, a report commissioned by the United Kingdom's Department of Health concluded that satanic ritual abuse was not, in parentheses, as an earlier report ordered by the conservative government found in 1994, end quote. It was not a myth. The Independent noted in anticipation of the report's release that a specially commissioned government report will this week conclude that satanic abuse does take place in Britain. It will say that its victims have suffered actual abuse and are not suffering from false memory syndrome, end quotes. And that's, we got a footnote. The timing of the report on this landmark study was rather curious. The Independent published the story on April 30th. So that's Valpurgis Nacht. He goes on to say, otherwise known as Night of the Witches, Valpurgis Nacht. So that's the night before Beltane. So Beltane is May 1st, along with the summer and winter solstices. Valpurgis Nacht is among the most significant of the occult holidays. That's true. Okay. So one of the primary authors of this controversial report was therapist Valerie Sinason, Sinason, who reportedly had personally treated 126 survivors of ritualized abuse. According to the report in The Guardian, Sinason said 46 of her patients claimed to have witnessed murder of children or adults during ritual abuse ceremonies, that had involved up to 300 people at a time. Some 70% of the reported, if you could scroll, please. 70% of the reported abuse was carried out by pedophiles and the rest by Satanists, end quote. The Independent added that 16 of the victims had also claimed, quotes, they had seen induced abortions or babies killed. Sinison's research has led her to conclude that some children, in quotes, are born for the purpose of abuse and are not registered on birth certificates. Do you want to say something, Hans?
Yeah, there's that band from Ohio. They were pretty popular by the 90s, the Breeders, right?
Oh, yeah.
The Breeders, and that's what they're called, Breeders, right? The
Right.
Breeders. And so,
like, even
Cannonball.
yeah, great song, right? Actually, I think. But you can even see it in Hollywood movies. Like, look at the new Mad Max there. There's the latest two, the Furiosa and this other one. They got this ruler king that has a harem of breeders that he's breeding super soldiers who are willing. I don't know if I brought this up before, that just jump off the cliff, and just like Hassani Sabah. So anyway, it's still in modern media. The breeders is a thing, and that's what Eyes Wide Shut is. That whole thing. They're being impregnated for the breeding, and then they steal the children. It's a system. And we all talked about, because it's the dissociation is a genetic trait, and so that's why. All right. So getting back to this. Okay. Sinison's research has led her to conclude that some children are born for. Okay, I said that. In a report from February 2000, The Independent revealed that Sinison had photographs documenting horrific injuries to children and the existence of ceremonial sites with the remains of mutilated animals. The same article noted that Scotland Yard had begun an investigation. It is unclear where that investigation led, as it is unclear that the official response was the release of Sinison's study. Media outlets appear to have dropped the story just before the report was issued. Many readers of the press accounts that preceded the report's release were no doubt predispositioned to dismiss Sinison and her fellow researchers as cranks. Where exactly readers were left to ponder was this alleged photographic evidence showing children and horrific injuries. And where is this evidence of ritual murders being performed? As it turns out, shockingly enough, such evidence is not that difficult to find. As hard as it may be to believe, especially for readers conditioned to think that all such stories are nothing but urban myths, photographic evidence of exactly the sort described by Sinison is being peddled all over the internet. And that's what the snuff porn is, guys. Like, that's what a lot of the child abuse porn, the CSAM, it's like it's a organized crime. Okay. But even with such, go ahead.
how long snuff films? Oh, these are urban legend. Urban legend.
Right.
Doesn't happen.
Right. Totally think there's already documented things. I mean, it was Leonard Lake snuff films, the guy from Canada, Mignotti or whatever.
Gimme Shelter, Rolling Stones movie. They show the guy being killed, right? They're watching the video editing.
Right.
The beginning of that, he's going through the, postmodern, going, Mick Jagger's in the cutting room going through and watching the killing. That's a snuff film.
Right. And then this latest Charlie Kirk, we all had to watch that. Like, that's a snuff film
That's intentional. They could have killed him somewhere else.
Right.
They could have got him in Arizona or something. They just knew he was going to be there on the 20th. So it was meant to happen in public so that people will watch that over and over. like all the researchers are watching it over and over. Like it's all
they're all studying. Oh, is this the bullet? Is that?
Did it go in the front? Did it back? Is this the entry
man.
wound? Is this the exit wound? How much blood is there? There's no blood.
God,
they're already doing it. Yeah, they're already like
over and over again. Yeah, you're programming yourself. That's what Michael Hoffman talks about that a while ago. Is that some of this stuff, the research actually becomes the induction, right? The information that's released, you're inducting yourself, and you're watching this. And one level, you're also identifying you're being shot in the head, right? You're being shot in the head, or else you're normalizing that, or you get, you know what I mean? Kind of like the Pizzagate stuff that people got really into that. Like, you don't need to see these images. You know what's going on. Just, you know what I mean? Just, because you can get too much into certain things, right?
Yeah, don't watch Wake the Dead. I'm just kidding. All right.
Just do some liquid coke. See, Freud did liquid coke, and that was one of his best treatments.
Why not?
Treatments.
Anyway,
let's solve everything. Have some coke.
Right.
No, it's a he called it the miracle cure. Some of his books he wrote, he was completely, and he got like there's Miles Davis recorded. I forget the name of the album, but he got this liquid coke. He's like, it's the best coke I ever did, man. But from the
medical establishment prescribes that stuff. It's still
you get it.
Adderall's like one
too,
link away from just straight up methamphetamine.
I was into that as a kid. Anyway, so moving on.
It's around.
It
all
tastes
over
like
LA.
sugar because it's like you crush it and sniff it, and the drip tastes like candy of Adderall on purpose.
Wow!
So that kids do it, and if you look, the new ones are an octagon. They're shaped like an octagon, dude. It's like Anyway, all right. We know about the octagon and the black cube and all that crap. Okay, so moving on here. All right. Citizens fellow research as cranks, as it turns out. Okay. But even with such compelling evidence being widely circulated, many will still be tempered to discount the stories told by the survivors of such abuse. Skeptics are advised to keep in mind the words of Detective Robert Simandl of the Chicago Police Department, in quotes here. It's difficult for us to believe such crimes are occurring, but they are all over the United States, end quote. Indeed, all over the world, as we shall see in the next chapter. And people should know about the Butcher of Belgium, and that whole thing is described in this book too. What was his name? Dutroux. That's not just in America, it's around the world. And the pink ballets and stuff. I posted that on my X yesterday. Okay. So this is Arlene Tyner writing in Probe magazine, July-August 2000. In the early 1950s, the CIA was looking for specially gifted subjects to study dissociative states which could be induced and controlled to some extent with hypnosis and drugs. It's all in that sentence right there.
Boom, it's all there.
Yeah.
You read this book, Hans. You know that Gilles de Rais is in there, right? Like he mentions Gilles de Rais. No, you're new.
Oh, he's muted. You're muted.
Yeah. There's a whole section.
That's what inspired me to bring that up, actually, just because he mentions that towards the end of the book. Yeah, man, I read that. That was wow, because it just, I guess I read it relatively quickly, but when you put all this stuff together in one package, right? And like I said, some of the stuff, the Atlanta child murders, I didn't know about, but he gets into this details of it. It's like, whoa. And there's a lot of cases he doesn't even mention, right? So it's just like, wow, this is really over the top. But he makes that case of all the trials, the patsies, you have people with military connections sometimes, or being hospitalized, going to mental hospitals, et cetera, or they're, abused by the parents and this and that. So there's so much. I think he doesn't necessarily go as deep as he could with the analysis, but maybe that wasn't the positioning of the book per se to do that. I mean, what I mean is just tying it all together is this whole, I mean, he said one thing is to create a state of fear, bring about a police state in the society. That's part of it, right? But there's other elements, right? And so I've talked about this for a long time, but it's that, the 1960s, that whole peace and love generation, these various shocks. You have the induction that's using the ritual process of, you talk about the liminal phase. You have the initiation, separation, initiation, and return, right? The basic ritual processing going from one stage to another. And so in terms of these, it's just like chaining these rituals, right? So you have 1960s, you have suddenly this out of nowhere, everyone is wearing these goofy ass clothing and, let's dance like that, Okay, I'm sorry. But
the freaks.
The freaks, of course, and then LSD, and then you have, we're going to change the world, peace and love, boom, over, right? Hard drugs, boom, serial killers really start, they just dial in right there at the tail end of that, right? Right in the Bay Area. Right. And this continues all the way up till the 90s, right? So that's your separation. You went through this initiation, and instead of returning to this world of peace and love, you return to this 1970s, crappy, 70s were really bad, actually. You think if you look at the 70s, they were a very dark decade, actually, but then the serial killer thing starts, and that, at the same time, you have all the self-help movements. You got, what's it, Earhart, that got all these different, like, kind of cult things. You got, this and that.
And all those serial killers, they always ask, oh, who else did you get? And they're, oh, you're the lone nut. What are you talking about? Who else? Like, the guy who talked to the dog or whatever. And the other one, the clown, like, they all.
Herkowitz.
Right. And the other guy that
Casey's networked. Casey's totally networked.
Right. And the Ramirez, the guy with the star on his hand or whatever, like, he thought he was part of a cult network too. Like,
according to Corso, a biography, he would go meet with LaVey. That's what he was doing in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And some of his crimes. They cover that up, of course, but there's all that other stuff. It's really crazy. So, somebody asked if I interview Radix Verum. I already did. You can check that out on my catalog. We talked about the whole FBI stuff. So that's, I think last year I did it.
Yeah, but I just wanted to stress is that, people were terrified, okay? In the entire cities across the country. Like, you have 3 networks, right? You have limited stuff, and people were really, this created mass terror. We're so used to shootings and whatever. It's like friggin' atomic bomb. Oh, it's atomic bomb. Oh, there's a mob of crazed Antifa. They're cutting people's heads off and cannibalizing them. Okay, seriously, like, we're so jaded. But
they do it on camera. Yeah.
Zodiac, right? That people were terrified. Across the board. With the Son of Sam. Right. And all the weird, both Son of Sam, Zodiac, you have these weird media missives, right? So this is also feeding into the collective psyche with these different, I talked about different inputs, right? You're putting in these occulted messages that are going in, right? So there's quite a profound, operation, right? And so and then you have AIDS. Oh, where serial killers are winding down. Oh no, I'm gonna die of AIDS.
The cool shooting is 99. The old Columbine thing started.
Columbine, that was a shifting to the next phase that we're in right now.
Exactly. Still. Yes.
The Roman Emperor Tiberius is infamous for cruelty. According to ancient historian Suetonius in his Life of Tiberius, during his self-imposed exile, this is around the time of Christ, this is like 30 AD, self-imposed exile on the island of Capri, Tiberius would order victims, often including slaves, condemned prisoners, and others who displeased him, to be thrown off high cliffs into the sea below after subjecting them to prolonged torture. These executions reportedly took place at a site now known as the Salto di Tiberio, Tiberius's Leap, where he could watch from his villa. So, historical fact.
Yeah, they are
Crazy.
not like us. You know, their brain. I don't believe they are human. These psychopaths, dude.
That's who. That's who.
Oh
Like
man,
Pontius Pilate worked under. That's the
right.
Roman rule, man. It's
Yeah.
like not the
And
human
everybody's
life
like,
is cheap.
ooh, everybody's like, the Jews killed our Lord. No, it was Romans who nailed the freaking nails, you know.
They did the job. They were the ones who did the
Right.
job. I
Yeah,
mean,
and it's the
Pontius
same thing.
Pilate gets a bad rap as he's seen as kind of like this malevolent guy. He seems to have respected Christ and
Right.
tried to save him, saying by going to Jewish law and saying, "Don't you have a thing where you can choose who survives?" And
Yeah,
then they
let
let
someone free.
Barabbas off.
Yeah.
well, you know,
And
Because of the
they're
mind
all-
control, they told the crowd.
Whoa, whoa,
I'm
whoa,
sorry.
whoa,
Yeah,
whoa, whoa.
sorry.
It happens a lot, man. The whole thing is like they the people who were who praise for Barabbas are supposedly the same people who were praising Christ as he came into Jerusalem. But I don't think there's any historical evidence for that.
Really?
I think it's part of the political thing. It's like create a fake crowd like the rulers want, and then juice the decision. So they're actually manipulating Pontius Pilate into making sure Christ dies. But also, I think another thing of that, in my opinion, in my interpretation of the New Testament, is that I think that his snub towards the Jews of Pontius Pilate is that he put the king of the Jews on top of the crucifix. So I think that's like, he really is your king. This guy really is something special and different as opposed to these other people. So I think we can wrap this up. I mean, we mentioned Bataille, like it just shows how smart McGowan was, because he like mentions all these figures we're talking about, Desaad, Bataille, and all these things. But like, just to go and kind of continue with this theme, he writes this quote of Bataille: Marquis de Sade had only one occupation in his long life, which really absorbed him, that of enumerating to the point of exhaustion the possibilities of destroying human life, of destroying them, and of enjoying the thought of their death and suffering. So,
yeah, imagine the consciousness that has to do that. Like, yeah. I mean, and what it took to get there. I mean, yeah, crazy. I apologize for interrupting, guys. Okay. I really do have a problem. And even the listeners tell me.
It like breaks my train of thought, too.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I'm a dickhead. I do apologize. And, I do respect both of you and care for both of you. And I don't mean to do such things. So please.
This is the thing I want people to kind of, for the next version, I want people to kind of take a look at this, because these two guys are key in this whole next document that we've taken like 6 episodes to get to, and that is Hoover and Tolson, who are mentioned through this 500-page George Hoban Estabrooks document. It's really something else. But what do you guys think? I'll ask you like a mind experiment or a thought experiment. When you see these pictures of these two, what comes to mind?
Mafia. I don't know.
Yeah. There's the man about town. These guys are respectable individuals. Look at their shoes. They got saddle shoes. I mean, God, they can't be bad guys. Yeah. Look at their haircuts, I mean, Hoover kind of looks like Hoffa for some reason. His face is like, I don't know. It's just, but yeah, these are the gentlemen. These are real. Like I've learned that Satanists look like this. People always think it's like some teenagers wearing black, but really it's, when I see these guys, I think, they're evil. But what do you think, Hans?
Yeah. I mean, they just look, they look like arrogant, I know they definitely look sketchy. I mean, you can see that they have power and they know it, and they have, hey, would you guys mind if I just read one page from the Estabrooks document drop?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll set it up for next time. I mean, we're almost at the 2-hour mark.
Oh, okay. Cool. Okay. Yeah. I just thought this practical. It's the first. Okay. But anyways, yeah, this interest shown back in the 30s in this, what a great technique or a tool, right, that these people have at their command. So,
and really what has power been all this time is to break the legs of the people under you and make them do what you say, change their brains to be slaves. What is feudalism, and what is modern society? So it only makes sense, really, in the long run. And thank you, listeners, for
Yeah,
joining
go
us.
ahead. If you want to read a page, Hans, do it. Is that what
Okay,
you want
cool.
to
Okay,
do?
yeah,
We got-
just like a
I mean, I got
little.
time. I got
Okay,
plenty of time.
just a teaser here. So this is just, and this is at the when he was introduced, right, to Hoover. So it's right at the beginning, December 10th, 1935. Practical hypnotism as applied by Dr. George Estabrooks of Colgate University faculty. While in Colgate University, to fill speaking engagements on December 9th, 1935, Dr. George Estabrooks, professor of psychology at Colgate, outlined to me a plan of practical and applied hypnotism and asked my opinions concerning it. Dr. Estabrooks has made considerable research into this subject and been encouraged therein by Dr. George B. Kutin, president of Colgate University, a psychologist of some note himself who published some outstanding works about 20 years ago on this subject. Dr. Kutin informed me that he had witnessed many of Dr. Estabrooks' experiments and told me that they were marvelous in their results. Dr. Estabrooks has developed a method of putting individuals to sleep without their knowledge that they are being hypnotized. He does not use the eyes in this method, but a gentle massage of certain portions of the neck. As he explained the theory, the hypnotized person does not realize that he has been hypnotized. He has made hundreds of experiments in the last 2 years, particularly with CCC camp members. I don't know what that is, but CCC camp members, and says that this. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, will you maybe come back and see look what that is? And says the system is absolutely infallible. He says that persons while asleep from this method will answer any question propounded to them absolutely truthfully. He has also worked out a test dealing with certain reflex of certain muscles of the hand, which he states positively shows whether the subject is actually asleep or faking sleep. Dr. Estabrooks has had correspondence with certain members of the military intelligence units of the Army and Navy, and they have assured him that they are very enthusiastic about his work along these lines. He has been invited to come to Washington and give practical demonstrations before representatives of the military intelligence units of both the Army and Navy. These units to furnish him subjects for demonstration. To furnish him subjects. Okay, so that's interesting. I informed him that you were tremendously interested in matters of this kind and that they might have some potential use in criminological work. I assured him that upon the occasion of his visit to Washington, you should very much like to meet him, have him meet our technical laboratory experts and have a confidential discussion with them. Dr. Estabrooks assured me that his theory was absolutely foolproof and could be practiced by anyone without the slightest danger to the subject. I knew Dr. Estabrooks very well as a student at Oxford University and believe that his system contains great possibilities in criminological work. He has informed me that he has been keeping it entirely secret and that it had been made known only to the intelligence units of the Army and Navy. Because of my personal friendship with Dr. Estabrooks, I feel that if you so desire, I can make arrangements for him to discuss his theory with Mr. Coffey or other members of the technical laboratory staff, explain the results he has obtained to them in detail, and if desirable, give actual demonstrations. If he has a successful method, and it seems to me that he has, the Bureau could easily obtain very favorable publicity concerning the development of this theory if and when Dr. Estabrooks decided to make it known to the world. Incidentally, Dr. Estabrooks' idea is not to make money for himself, but to aid the world generally, particularly shell-shocked and gassed soldiers. Dr. Estabrooks was overseas several years ago with the Canadian armies and had an enviable service record with them. I suggest in this connection that Dr. Estabrooks might be given serious consideration as a lecturer on practical and applied psychology to appear before some of the subsequent police training schools conducted by the Bureau. I feel that the Bureau has everything to gain and nothing to lose by discussing with Dr. Estabrooks through its technical experts his theory of applied hypnotism, respectively WHD Lester. So that's just
CCC is a program for the New Deal when people under the Depression couldn't get a job and they worked for the government. And so they like signed up to be government workers, right? Yeah, Civilian Conservation Corps, right? They would like, make parkway trails and stuff, and they, plant trees and stuff. But it was like government stooges. Like they signed, just like the military, you sign away the rights to your body, I guess. I don't know what the contract was for CCC, but it was a government program. And these were regular poor people that needed money, right? And they do whatever just for, so that's who the CCC was.
What we're going to find in the next episode is that this guy is a member of the American government past, administrations for 4 decades, really, till 1972. And a lot of the background we're going to go in is a more accurate version of history of what happened post-war than I think is in the history books, because we're going to show that these guys are in very detailed discussion with Estabrooks, the founder, as relayed in Dave McGowan's Program to Kill, right there, where we did the Mind Control 101. So you're going to see all this. That means that when you see all these pictures of Hoover with JFK, RFK, LBJ, all these other characters, CIA agents, CIA heads, he knows this stuff. And most people, when they look at the pictures, they don't know that he knows this kind of like Estabrooks material. The precursor by 20 years to MK Ultra, precursor 20 years to Dulles. And so this is all very important. And this is like I've said earlier, it'll show this is more important knowledge, I think, about mind control in the 20th century than MK Ultra, because MK Ultra is coming after all of Estabrooks stuff. Hypnosis, his book, Future of the Human Mind. This guy's super important, Estabrooks is. So I think that'll be the next show. But I mean, we're at the 2-hour mark. People, I've had a lot of great responses for this episode, 6 episodes we've done so far. Please share it if you can on your social media. Let people know. I'll put links to Hans Uter's Resonant State and Sean's Wake the Dead, and so people can check out their shows too. But please share these shows, because I think they're important, and they'll really open up 20th century history to you, and the history of assassinations and things like that, and the Manchurian Candidate. So it's all very important. But thanks for having me on the show, and until next time.
Thank you, William. I just wanted to add one more point, that the criminology, the usefulness of this like, what are they doing? They are giving themselves a reason to exist. Like all these school shootings, we got to have an FBI to solve these, problem reaction solution, right? This, it's useful for the FBI to create mass murderers and to create, school shooters, part of the program. So that way we need, we crave to be enslaved by these government programs. And thank you, William. Everybody, all my listeners should please check out WilliamRamseyInvestigates.com, and we can find your books and your podcast links and all your documentaries. All your great work is all there. And please, Hans.
And I had a monumental accomplishment. I cracked into double digits on YouTube, man. I was like, I set very low bar. I got double digits. I was going for single. I got double. But just to say, thank you guys. It's always just amazing. Just kind of bouncing off all these things. I just wanted just before we go, just to call attention to just a few brief things from this. They're kind of odd, but number one, he's working with military intelligence units of Army and Navy, in the sentence, comma, these units to furnish him subjects for demonstrations. To furnish him subjects. So think it's just comma. Intelligence units of the Army and Navy. these units capitalize to furnish him subjects for demonstrations, which means what?
Delta force.
Yeah, and then also working with gassed and shell shocked to aid the world generally, particularly shell shocked and gassed soldiers. So I'm not sure how
does that aid the world?
Yeah, so I think that's some of the read between the lines, even that comma, furnish. You furnish someone. That's like furniture. That's an object.
Right.
Subjects for experimentation. And these are, and this is what Gowan talks about, right? All these people from the military going to these special things. Maybe some of those were subjects that were furnished.
And they signed away their ownership of their own body on a contract. They signed it away. The government owns their body now for 4 years or whatever, right? That's how they do it legally.
Right. Heidnik was definitely in MK Ultra. There's no question about it. He's just one that we know of. We know of so many other ones.
Yeah.
These guys eventually were furnished.
The cannibal guy there, and Lake also.
Lake was in Nam. These guys are coming from Nam or weird things. And there's even more strange stuff that they've disclosed and discovered. Like in the Kinzer book I saw recently, they would take the guys and make them watch snuff films. Like they literally would. Like this is in Kinzer. So that's how they would program
the Ludovico method.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ties into Parallax View. It's really amazing. But it's very important for people to know this is not 50s. This is 30s. And Hoover, like you said, he knows some of these crimes and things that happened. They involve people that Esther Brooks would be a person to influence, to have dark persuasion over. So he knows that, but he's not disclosing it. That thing. And it goes back to our original show on Manchurian Candidate, where Dr. Yen Lo is talking about these people as a weapon. And I think that's what people have to think about in their minds, is these are tools of deception and assassination. And it's and programmed to kill is probably the perfect phrase to describe and typify it.
Yeah, last thing is that, obviously this is the introduction where Hoover is introduced to Esther Brooks. This is the very beginning, first thing, but CCC camp members, military soldiers who don't have to follow orders, and shell-shocked and gassed individuals. So, and we go on, we'll see that the CCC, these people are basically what, they're poor, right? Great Depression, man.
Yes.
And so these are also captive audiences. These aren't people that sign up to voluntarily, take be a human guinea pig or a test. These are people being experimented upon without their knowledge, right? They don't know what they're getting. So I just thought that was of some interest that, and again, 1930, well, so this started a long time ago, long before MK Ultra. So, all right.
I just want to thank both of you guys for letting me be part of this. This is so fun, and my listeners as well have had. They love it, and they've been giving me good comments. And just want to thank you guys again for letting me be part. I don't mean to jump all over your words and start interrupting. I will. I'm constantly working on that within myself. I'm doing the shadow work.
Get a piece of pad and a piece of paper and a pen.
I have it. I have been.
So when somebody's talking, you can write it down and then come back to it.
Just get a
technique.
Yes,
cat and nine tails, dude.
Yes, I'll cut myself every time.
It makes bad audio. People don't like listening. That's why people don't watch TV. They just talk over each other the whole time. It's horrible.
That's true.
I don't want to do that.
Me neither.
And I have enough time. We have 2 hours.
I am wrong. Yes.
Okay.
And thank you so much for your time and for your attention and for the listeners' time and attention. It's really a rewarding all the way around for me, and I'm so thankful. So,
thank you guys. Thank you, William.
Thank you. Our peace.